Hello everyone, welcome back to Tooth and Claw Podcast. We have our wildlife biologist. He's on a grizzly bear board for all the grizzly bears.
Yeah, for all the grizzly bears. He's on that board.
Yeah. He's on a board with
Sit
bears.
on the board.
And then I'm his little brother, Jeff. I've had one ass surgery and a few other surgeries. And we have our tech guy, Mike.
10-game winning streak, baby.
He labeled himself tech guy.
10-game winning streak.
A little joke. Yeah, I feel like the past 10 episodes, I've really been doing great work.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Jeff, are you wearing, is that shirt a fan shirt for me?
Not really, no.
What?
Is your shirt a fan shirt for me?
Grizz? Yeah. Grizz Kid. We need some Grizz Kid merch.
Of you two, who has had the most surgeries?
I would put money on me.
Jeff clears pretty
Jeff.
easily. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't had that many. I had my ankle. I had my
I had that same ankle surgery.
appendectomy. Does wisdom teeth, do those count?
Sure.
So that's like 8.
that.
I don't know how many wisdom teeth you have, like 8?
You don't count, you just one.
So I might be winning.
Jeff had his too, though. I've only had my wrist outside of my wisdom teeth.
Too much wanking.
Yeah. Yeah. I just broke my wrist.
We were in a really strict religious family, so that's the only way we could get him to stop.
Just
he didn't.
wrist.
There was nothing wrong with it. We just did the surgery. So
The cornflakes failed. Your parents tried giving you cornflakes, which was supposed to stop you. Or no, was it graham crackers? I forget which. Like one of those products.
It was cornflakes.
It was cornflakes.
Cornflakes. Yeah, we talked about this not long ago.
That's right.
Well, Jeff, I'm glad that you're kind of out of the woods on your surgery for the most part.
Yeah, we'll see. They told me there's like a 50-50 chance that I have to get another surgery from it coming back. So it's like, that's kind of high.
I like those odds.
No, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, that's not great.
But yeah, you know what? I'm in a much better mood than I've been in for a while.
Great. Maybe we won't fight as much this episode.
I wouldn't count on it.
I'm still not in a good mood.
I'm still ready to rumble.
Well, I love you both dearly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're just going to get into it this week.
You don't love me.
I do. I probably love you more than just about anyone else in this world.
Nope.
I don't know. I think I do.
Are you saying that no one loves Jeff like you love him, or you love Jeff more than you love anyone else?
I love Jeff as much as I love anyone else.
Yeah. So tied for first. That's not bad.
I would say
Well,
he's tied
I'm
for
going
first.
to argue it.
That's fine. Mike, you're up there too. You're top 5.
I'll take that.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing we're talking about love, because today's story really gets into some interesting quandaries when it comes to loving a person and what you would do for love. And it's kind of a tough story. It's maybe the one that I've read where I think the most mistakes were made. And I'm going to do my best to be... We've had some big mistakes.
Lions of Savo, they definitely should have killed those lions.
Yeah, you know, I should quantify for a bear story. This is the one where there's been the most mistakes, maybe.
I'm going to say rubbing a jellyfish on your 9-year-old boy is a mistake. But that's just one mistake, I guess.
Bear story.
Well, I was going to say Timothy Treadwell. If you count like every bear he touched, that's a lot of mistakes.
That one's like in a different league almost. I think this one's more kind of just mistakes that were made because the people didn't have any education.
I'm not letting you say anything without pushback this episode.
That's fair. And I'm not going to argue at all with your pushback this time. I'm just going to be super placid and agree.
Well, that's just not true.
I think this is a good story, though, because it's one that's going to help people learn from these mistakes. And I do want to quote my sources before we get started. One of them is an article in Slate that was written by John Evans, who's our main person in this story. It was adapted from his book called Young Widower, a memoir. There's a Wondery podcast called This Is Actually Happening, where he was interviewed. Is that
in the title of that memoir?
It's not. I added that. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys are really going to challenge my patience today. A Wondery podcast, This Is Actually Happening, where he was interviewed. If I recommend that podcast, if you want more on this story, especially if you really want to get into like his feelings and what this whole event did to him mentally. And then I found a lot of little articles too that were just kind of 1-paragraph articles about the incident.
Dude, do you know what I've been thinking? So you're a published writer. You've written papers, peer-reviewed, published. You're a scientist.
That means
you could quote yourself and no one would be able to really take exception to that. I think you should start doing that.
It's generally not like great practice in the scientific community to be citing yourself a lot. But there's some scientists where they can't help it because they're so prolific.
I watched the movie Ip Man 2, starring Donnie Yen. You know, at the end of the movie, he's losing to the boxer, like the Western Hemisphere boxer guy.
Okay.
And he inspires himself by recalling a speech that he himself gave to somebody else.
That's sick. That's a good
made
move.
Him. Yeah. It's awesome. I think you should start doing that.
Yeah. Speaking of love, I love your sweater that you're wearing right now, Mike.
Oh, thanks.
It looks very cozy and nice.
It's super, super cozy.
Yeah.
I'm entering my cozy arc.
I love that. Weird time of year to be doing that in spring. You know, it's more of a fall thing for most people, but you always march to the beat of your own drum. So, all right. You guys ready for the story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So John Evans spent his earliest years in Overland Park, Kansas, which is a small suburb of Kansas City. And like a lot of kids that grew up in the Midwest in the 80s and 90s, he grew up with a big, loving family. They played a lot of games together. They watched movies as a family. They went to church together every Sunday. Jeff, sounds pretty similar to our family. Mike, probably yours too. Aside from that, we weren't.
Yeah,
in the
we
Midwest.
had a pretty big dad.
A big dad. Yeah, sure. He always seemed big.
You said his big,
loving family. Yeah, like a large family with more members than average, probably.
I mean, you weren't that big.
No, I'm the smallest of the boys in our family, without a doubt. All right. John went to Catholic school. He loved sports, which came pretty naturally to him because he was big for his age and he was highly competitive. He was confident and happy in his life at Overland Park. But when he was 14, his dad got a job in New York City and his family moved to the suburbs just outside of New York. It's a pretty big change for John. He lost a lot of his confidence. He felt like this huge corn-fed country boy in the big city. And he did everything he could to fit in. He wore a magnetic earring. He styled his hair like Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell.
Sweet.
But ultimately he felt like a fish out of water. And I had a magnetic earring for a couple weeks in 4th grade. And they're pretty sick. Mine was just like a metal stud. I think it's a good way to decide if you want an earring or not. I didn't want one afterward.
Yeah, I wholly encourage it.
You would have done great in New York City.
I think so. I think in Missoula it was a bit much.
Yeah.
For all my friends. John really did lean into this lifestyle in New York, though. He got into theater, jazz band, cross country, just really worked on reinventing himself, but was pretty hard and he felt really alone. So then rather than trying to fit in, he started trying to just fit in the least possible, like push against the flow as hard as he possibly could.
That's a good move.
Yeah, he wore a trench coat and a fedora to school.
Trench coats to the...
It's tough. What year is this?
I'm not sure. I think it was like probably early 90s.
Okay,
mid-90s.
then we're still in the safe trench coat zone.
Dude,
Yeah.
a fedora, if you can
bad
pull
trench
it
coat
off,
times.
like...
Yeah, that's true. Most people can't, though.
It can go both ways, but man, when it's good, it's good.
If it has safari flaps on it, is when it's the best.
He's the only guy who could pull it off.
So John's feeling a lot of feelings, especially in high school. He's desperate also to have a girlfriend. But whenever someone would try to get close to him, he would find reasons not to like them. Does it sound familiar to either of you?
That does sound very familiar.
Yeah, I think both of you can probably relate with that quite a bit.
Yeah.
All of this led to a feeling that followed John throughout his adolescence where he just wished he was someone else. And when he got to college, he discovered creative writing and it really changed his life. Poetry hit especially hard for him, and when he left his undergrad, he was determined to get an MFA, which is a Master of Fine Arts in Poetry. As he was leaving college, a trusted advisor pretty much told him that as soon as he got his MFA, he'd be chained to academia forever, and that he should go live his life first and experience the world. So John joined the Peace Corps.
I think that's pretty good advice, probably.
I do too. Tooth and Claw is brought to you by Quints. For me, recently, I've just kind of felt I've had the same clothes my entire life, or at least my entire adult life. I'm getting really tired of them. I feel like they're all kind of aged and not that great anymore. And I've really wanted to update my wardrobe. And us partnering with Quince came at perfect time for me because everything I've been ordering for them, I've just absolutely loved. And when we first started working with them, I was getting stuff for the fall, and now I'm really excited for their stuff for spring and for summer. They have lightweight shirts and shorts for $30. They have pants for any occasion. They have comfortable lounge sets. Mike, you love being comfortable in your lounge sets.
Sounds like my speed.
And then also we've been doing a lot of traveling, and they have really great luggage options, durable duffel bags, all sorts of different things you can put in your house. It's really a one-stop shop for everything. All of their stuff is really high quality and luxury, and they're priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. And the way they can do that is by cutting the cost of the middleman and passing those savings directly on to us. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, and they use premium fabrics and finishes, which we absolutely love. Everything I've gotten from them has just become a favorite thing in my wardrobe, and I'm excited to try some of their home stuff and their luggage too. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxury upgrades you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/tooth for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/tooth to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/tooth. So John decides to join the Peace Corps. You know, we've all been there, right?
No, literally. I don't think any of us have.
In June of 2000, he leaves for Bangladesh, and he immediately finds a lot of kindred spirits in the Peace Corps. However, he's 6'6", and he's one of the only white people in his village. So once again, he does feel like he really sticks out, and he's kind of isolated and alone during his time in Bangladesh. But he thrives professionally in the Peace Corps, and during this time, there's a really big bright spot, and that was Katie LaPlante. John had always thought
you were
that
going to say the sun,
which wouldn't be a bright spot for you. Be a terrible. Well, it'd be bright, I guess.
Bright.
Yeah. I really walked into that
Unless
one. Walked into that trap.
Yeah.
So John had always thought Katie was really cute and fun. And when she came up to him drunkenly, finally at a party about a year into their assignment, she asked him why they had never gotten together. And then within a few months, the two of them are dating, mostly because Katie was pretty aggressive about letting John know she was interested. And then in fall of 2001, something pretty crazy happened. Jeff, what was it? Fall of 2001?
Yeah, that was when Timothy Treadwell died, right?
It's not. September 11th happened in fall of 2001. And John and Katie had to go home. They traveled through Asia for a bit first, and then they went back to the US, and they moved in together in Chicago. And Katie was really the perfect match for John in a lot of ways. She was really fun and beautiful, but also incredibly kind. And she was one of those people that always was taking care of like the misfits. If you went to he said if you would go to a party and there'd be someone that wasn't talking to anyone, Katie would go talk to them, and not just for like a couple minutes. She would spend a lot of time talking to them.
Like if Glenn Danzig were at the party, she'd just be with him all night.
Oh yeah, she would love Glenn Danzig. Sure.
I don't understand.
Misfit.
Hanging out with the Misfits.
Yeah.
Like the band?
Yeah.
I got you.
So the other thing that I thought was really endearing about her is when people would ask her what she wanted to be when she grew up, she would always just say, I want to be happy. And I really like that. I think that's like a nice thing to want to be when you grow up.
I don't
John,
know.
You don't think so? I have a hard time thinking of a better answer.
It's vaguely aspirational, but it's like make some bullet points on how you're going to attain that goal kind of thing, you know?
Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, and like to be honest, whenever I like meet someone who's just always happy nowadays,
yeah,
I'm just kind of like, there's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah.
There's something wrong with this person.
Yeah. Something wrong, or they're lying. They're pretending.
No, you're right. That's a good thing to say.
He also just talks about how great she was at living in the present, which is something that I wish I could do a lot better. Just being really present instead of always thinking about what comes next.
Future.
I am. So they end up getting engaged in 2003 and then married in 2004. And they move to Florida and go to graduate school. Katie gets an internship in Romania, and they end up moving then to Romania. And John's teaching English in Bucharest, Romania. And I forget what Katie was doing. I think something in health. But they both love Romania. For them, it's like their favorite country they've ever been to or lived in. and they're really thriving.
Oh,
On
cool.
weekends.
I just said that's cool. That seems like
it is cool.
It's a country
where
I'd
would you
love to
guess
visit.
this story's going towards, Mike?
Dracula, right?
Vampires.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, just wait.
No, maybe some like Colosseum battles that happened in Rome, right?
We're not
Romania?
talking Rome. We're talking Romania.
What?
Romania.
Is that
Like if
just
you're
like
really
Rome
into
on?
Rome.
That's like Rome on steroids, right? Like mania, like Romania.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's for like
Sure.
when people were asked how often they thought about the Roman Empire, and it's like every day they had Romania.
Romania. All right. How much juice do we have left in this joke?
Well, we started at 0.
All right.
Failure
So
launch.
on the weekends, a thing they would do is they would travel to different parts of the country and just explore, go on hikes, do different cultural things. They just really loved seeing every corner of Romania. And that's what they were doing on June 23rd, 2007. So they got up early that Saturday. They met their good friend Sarah at the train station, and they took a train to the city of Bushten in the Carpathian Mountains, which is where Dracula lives, in the Carpathian Mountains.
Huh.
Their plan was to take a cable car to the top of a mountain and stay in a hostel or a guest house where they had made reservations. But when they got off the train, it was pouring rain and the cable cars had closed as a result. They weren't running. There was another couple there. It was a doctor and her husband, as well as a Romanian guy. And all 6 of them were trying to figure out what they could do because they're all going to these guest houses at the top of the mountain.
Mm.
So John has an idea. He says, why don't we just hike up there? It's not that far. We can do it. Like, we're all looking pretty healthy, and surely it wouldn't be that bad of a hike. So they all agree, and they start off in the rain. And it ends up being a really beautiful hike. They hike through this Carpathian forest, which is just really dense, beautiful pine forest. And then the trees thin out, and they get up into this more alpine area, and it's just these wide open vistas, really beautiful. And they get to the end of the trail into this first guest house, the one where they were hoping to stay. But because this cable car wasn't working, the people at the top also couldn't get down to the bottom, and they had all just kind of rebooked their rooms for the night. So there weren't any rooms for John, Katie, Sarah, this couple, and the Romanian guy.
Oh, I know another story that started this way. No room at the inn.
Yep. So they ended up giving birth to Jesus.
The Immaculate Conception Part 2.
That's the end of the story.
I thought that happened in Rome.
Here we go. We're back on it.
It's in Romania.
We'll squeeze
right?
it some more. So all the rooms are full, and the people at this first guest house say, listen, you guys can sleep on the floor if you want, but we really don't have any food. So go up to this other guest house that's just like a kilometer away, and they have a full kitchen. They're a bit bigger. They might have rooms for you. At the very least, you can eat dinner there and then come back here and sleep on the floor. So they decide to do it. On the way to this second guest house, they run into some other hikers, and one of them was actually a student that John had taught in Bucharest. And they're really excited to see these other hikers, but that excitement quickly turned to anxiety when these hikers told them that they needed to be very careful. And the reason they had to be careful was because earlier that day, they'd seen a large bear on the trail.
Ooh. What type of bears do they have in Romania?
So they have brown bears in Romania, and we're going to do a little bit of biology.
Like
so,
it's like 100% going to be a brown bear.
Yes. This is Ursus arctos. This is the same animal as our grizzly bear. The subspecies over there is the Eurasian brown bear, which is Ursus arctos. But really, it's the same animal. If you were to put this bear in a cage with our bear, you'd have a hard time telling them apart, and they could mate if they wanted to.
Oh, they would have sex. But I mean, polar bears and grizzly bears have sex.
Yeah, because they're also closely related. But these two, that doesn't happen that often. These two, if it was like male, female, and they were feeling it, there'd be nothing weird about it. Yeah.
I'm just now deciding.
There's nothing weird about it, Mike. Okay.
Would they let us watch?
Probably. Me and Jeff watched
nothing weird.
some bears
Nothing
hump
to
for a
hide,
while.
no shame. Yeah.
Is it like if we went to Romania and had sex with a Romanian type of thing?
Exactly. It's exactly like that. Nothing weird about that, unless, you make it weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why
So
would I make it weird?
I don't know, dude. I don't know why you would, but
Weird's not necessarily bad either. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
I'm
let's
realizing
just-
now The term Eurasian's pretty interesting to me. It's just like the two continents.
Yeah.
Why don't you get a little more geographically specific? It's like
I think that's a great question, but I think the reason they use that term with wildlife quite a bit is because often these species are found throughout both continents.
Like the same exact genus and stuff.
Yeah, I've actually always had a problem with those being separate continents. Because each of the other continents are like more divided,
Yeah.
Right. This one,
where do you draw the line?
Yeah, they just made one.
And Romania is pretty close to Asia. I mean, you're right on the boundary.
Russia,
there,
it's like half. They're like European, but they're also in Asia. It doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
Yeah, what the heck?
But yeah, I think the reason, Mike,
what the heck, Putin?
Like we saw Eurasian
I
lynx.
hate that guy. I'm just gonna come right out and say it.
We saw Eurasian lynx in India, in Asia.
Yeah, right.
But you could see that exact same animal in like Sweden or Finland.
That same one?
That not that same individual, but the same species. But way to keep me on my toes. All right. There's a lot of brown bears in Romania.
I think I just broke my winning streak. I think I'm losing this one.
You're 10-1 now. The actual number of brown bears in Romania is a point of some contention. The Ministry of the Environment in Romania says there's around 8,000 bears, which is a lot. But lots of bear biologists and environmental organizations claim that the methods they use for these population estimates are flawed and the number is much lower. And honestly, just based on ecological carrying capacity, I think it's pretty impossible that Romania would have that many bears.
You think they counted the same bears a few times?
That's honestly part of their flaw is they recounted bears a lot. Like they would count it and then they would
big circle and
exactly.
They keep counting it.
It honestly is exactly that.
Yeah. That's a Mario Party game. You have to count the shy guys, but they like mix and match and stuff. It's hard.
Yep. So I think it's probably like more on the order of 4,000 to 6,000 bears.
How much does the lower 48 have?
Great question. We're going to get to that in just a second. That's perfect timing. We're not quite there yet. All right. So pin that, Jeff. You got a pin in that? Okay.
Pinned it.
That tiny noise you just heard was Jeff pinning it.
Tooth and Claw is brought to you by Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've got this problem where I'm a little bit lazy. I don't always choose the healthiest items. And like, I'm just getting to a point where I'm really tired of just running errands in general. My room's a little messy right now and I just feel a little overwhelmed a lot of the time and I don't like shopping for groceries. So enter Hungry Root. It's like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist all wrapped in one. They take care of the weekly grocery shopping, recommending healthy groceries and meals tailored to your taste, nutrition preferences, and health goals. I love Hungry Root. It gives me really fresh vegetables mixed in with really tasty meat, which, I love meat. So I made some delicious chicken tacos the other day with like an avocado sauce that just delicious and is really easy. All of Hungry Root's recipes can be made in just 15 minutes or less. With over 15,000 recipes shipped each week, there's something for every taste and nutrition preference. Hungry Root also has healthy groceries like smoothies, kid snacks, sweets, ready-to-eat meals, salad kits, and even supplements.
They all slap. They're so good. Hand on my heart. I'm just going to say, Hungry Root, stamp of approval.
Also,
yeah,
we love Hungry Root as a sponsor just because it's something we really enjoy. So honestly, if you're going to try one of our recommendations, try this one, please. It's delicious.
I love their sweets for me are really good and they're much healthier than the ones I typically buy.
Yeah, great.
And it's kind of a cheat code because I feel like I still get to eat something that kind of satisfies that sweet tooth craving for me, but it's much less sugar and much healthier than what I typically would eat. So I've been stockpiling a lot of snacks from Hungry Root because I just love them.
And you know what? You're going to love Hungry Root as much as we do. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/tooth and use code TOOTH. That's hungryroot.com/tooth, code TOOTH to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/tooth, code TOOTH.
So we're going to say there's 6,000 bears in Romania.
I mean, they probably know. Do they know you're a Dior model?
They must if they listen to our podcast because you bring it up every episode. All right, so 6,000 bears. If that many really are in Romania, they have one of the highest densities of brown bear anywhere in their range, with roughly 67 bears per 1,000 kilometers squared. That's about 3 times higher than the brown bear density in Alaska. They're built very similar to our grizzly bears in the lower 48. So when we talk about brown bears, there's a big kind of variation in how they look and how big they are. So like a coastal brown bear in Alaska, often is kind of a uniform color and very large. These ones look similar to a grizzly bear in Montana. They have that kind of grizzled, beautiful coloration of their fur. They weigh generally between 250 and 700 pounds. And they have really similar behavior as the interior grizzlies too, in that they don't have a super plentiful food source like salmon, and they have to be a little bit more territorial and aggressive in their search for food.
That's like the range your mom weighed, right? At
My mom?
any given time, Mike.
250 to 700.
She's a big, beautiful woman, Mike.
Yeah,
We
what's
miss
the
her.
acronym? That's like a popular acronym I've heard on certain websites.
I don't know. She was really small. Okay.
She would hibernate. She would lose a lot of it.
She was 18
in the
inches
spring,
tall.
she was tiny, but in the fall, boy, was she big. All right. So there's a study I love. I've consulted it a lot for episodes on brown bears, and it's called Brown Bear Attacks on Humans, a Worldwide Perspective. And it's an analysis of all the brown bear attacks on people from 2000 to 2015. It's this really big collaborative work between dozens of bear biologists, and it's one of the more complete data sets that shows trends among
Was your
brown bear
professor
attacks.
Tom Smith on there?
He wasn't, but a lot of the
I'm
brown
not
bear
gonna read
biologists that I really respect were on this one. I do wish Tom was on it because he is one of the leading voices in attacks. But one of the things that they highlight in this paper is attack rate by country, and all of the countries with brown bear attacks, Romania had the most.
Oh,
And I'm not even talking per capita. They had the highest number of attacks. So Jeff,
Really?
earlier you asked about how many bears there are per country.
yeah.
Russia is definitely the most. They have like roughly 100,000 of the
That's
200,000
huge.
brown bears. After that, I think it's North America with around 50,000. And then I'm not sure. But what we are going to get into, what I am sure about, is how many attacks there are by
But
country.
if we're unpinning my question, are we unpinning it?
Yeah.
I said lower 48 because Alaska has
No.
a ton of ours.
Yeah. So lower 48, there's like maybe 2,500 bears
Okay, so Romania has more than
than the lower
the
48.
United States without Alaska.
Without a doubt, by a good margin. Okay. But now we're going to
Without
look
Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah, you can also keep Hawaii out of that. We're going to look at attacks by country and between 2000 and 2015. So this gives you a good kind of look at what these attack rates look like. So Romania had 131 attacks during that 15-year window, which is the highest of any country.
Yeah.
The US was next with 113. And then I'm curious if you guys can guess.
We're not first in anything anymore.
We're not. We're losing our way.
Aren't we
Can you
doing?
guys-
We're pretty good with obesity, right?
Yeah, we're good at
We're
obesity,
good at
probably suicide,
gun violence.
without
there
a doubt.
you go. Number one, baby.
No medical coverage, cost
American
of medical
exceptionalism.
coverage. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Olympics. We won
Super
the
Bowls.
Olympics.
Yeah. All right. So now I want you guys to guess the next 4 countries. And if you guess them in order, I'll donate some money.
It's very
I didn't
generous
really
of you.
plan. I'll donate for every country you get right of these next 4, I'll donate $20 to the Grizzly Bear Foundation. For every country you get right and in the right order, I'll donate 50.
Holy mackerel.
So
This is not per capita, right? Just
No. So this is the
pure
most
numbers.
the number of attacks between 2000 and 2015. Romania was number 1 with 131, US number 2 with 113. What do you think is number 3?
Can I guess?
Yep.
Canada.
Mike, what do you guess? If either of you get it right, I'll donate the money.
Oh, that's such a good guess. I'll go with Japan.
Both of you are wrong. Number 3 was Russia with 111.
Yeah.
What do you think
Shoot,
number
I guess.
4 is?
Well, I know Canada's going to be on
It's got to be, right?
for brown
your
bears,
guess?
Mike. Japan doesn't have brown bears, I don't think.
They do up north.
They do. In
I was thinking they have a lot of black bear attacks. I confused those.
You know what? I'm wrong. You're right.
Okay, so number 4, what do you guessing?
I'll guess Canada this time.
You got it. Jeff, you don't even have to guess. Mike got it. $50 to Brown Bear or Grizzly Bear Foundation. What do you think number 5 is?
What's the time period?
This is between 2000 and 2015. I don't think you're going to get 5 or 6.
I'm going to say Slovenia.
No.
Bulgaria?
Mike? No. Slovakia is number 5.
Ooh,
Oh, that's what
I said.
Jeff meant that. That's what he meant.
And number 6, I'll give you a hint. You haven't named this country yet.
Italy?
It's not Italy. I want to give you one more hint, Jeff. This is another country that part of it is in Europe and part of it is in Asia.
China?
Think about that answer.
That's in Asia all the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one more try.
Ukraine? That's all the way in Europe, I feel like. Mongolia?
No. Turkey. Turkey is the last one. All right. So $50 to Grizzly Bear Foundation. You know what? Let's just round it up.
You know what Turkey's most famous for?
What?
Hair transplants.
Yeah. Also bear attacks. Okay. So let's get back to our story.
All right.
John, Katie, Sarah, the doctor and her husband, and the Romanian guy arrive at this nicer guest house where they eat a nice meal, but they're told there's no extra rooms and that they would have to return to this other one and sleep on the floor. These guest houses aren't that far from each other, a kilometer or two, so it's not that bad of a walk. But it is starting to get dark, and they wanted to get back to where they'd be sleeping as quickly as possible, so they leave in a hurry. Now, all 3 of us have had some ankle problems, right?
Yes.
And what happens when you sprain your ankle a couple times?
Those ligaments get all loose.
Yep. They get super weak and loose, and it sprains really easily. You kind of just start having a bad ankle. Katie had a weak ankle, and as they were leaving the second guest house, she rolls it really badly. She sits down, she's crying, she's struggling to move on, and as she's doing this, it's getting darker and darker. This doctor and her husband are starting to get a little worried. They don't want to hike back in the pitch dark, so they tell the rest of the group that they're going to keep on hiking and at least get closer to this first guest house.
Well, and that bear can probably smell the extra blood in her ankle.
It definitely can't. Without a doubt, it can't. I shouldn't say without a doubt, but it can't. So Katie tells John to go ahead and go with this doctor and her husband, and that Sarah and the Romanian guy would stay back with her and they would catch up when the pain in her ankle had subsided. So John leaves with this couple. He leaves his wife behind, goes down the trail with this couple, and they start getting pretty close to the guest house where they hit this stream that they decide they should all cross as a group. So they decide they're going to wait there for Katie, Sarah, and the Romanian guy. They're really close to the guest house. They can see the light and everything. And they're like, we'll wait here. We'll wait for them to catch up. And they wait and wait and wait, and no one shows up. And what had happened was back near the second guest house where Katie had been hurt, they were starting to move. They're passing a small lake when suddenly a dark shape moving along the trail on the side of the lake makes them freeze.
Ooh.
It's the bear. The bear's there. It's moving slowly but confidently in their direction. And that's when they make another mistake. So I think their first mistake was separating. Here's where they make their second big mistake. Katie tells them that the bear isn't interested in them. It just wants food. They throw all their packs to kind of try and distract the bear. And then she says they should lay down and play dead. Just not good advice.
That's about as bad as you can do.
Especially with 3 people. You have enough people to discourage this bear, but instead they kind of separate, they throw their packs, and they all 3 lay down.
They kind of bait it. Yeah, I feel like they throw their bags and like bait the bears in, and then...
It's never a good idea to throw your bag.
Yeah.
The reason being is that if, say, this bear does make contact with you, it's helpful to have that bag on your back to give the bear something to tear into. Maybe if you're being mauled and you can leave your bag and then get out of there, that's an option, but you don't want to throw your bag. The bear was not at all interested in their bags. They threw them, they laid down, and it just walked right up to them.
Didn't touch their bags.
No.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just wondering, like, if they did have food in their, this is not ideal action to be taking, But if they did have something to eat that would attract the bear, is that absolutely the worst thing you could do?
If you know that that's what the bear wants, then no, it's not the worst thing you could do. But you don't know that. Most people aren't going to know that. Yeah, that's true. You know? And if it's not what it wants and then it does go and eat that, you've just food conditioned a bear. You've taught that bear that when it approaches people, they throw food out for it. And maybe it was just going to walk right past you. And you've essentially killed that bear at that point. You've taught it a lesson that it's not going to be able to forget.
Right.
So it's not a good idea. And a worse idea is just to simply lay down when a bear's approaching you. It's a very, very bad idea. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast. At the end of the story, I'm going to get into like a bullet point list of everything they did wrong. But for now, we're just going to move past it.
Hearing this, I know you always say like the worst thing you can do is run away.
Yeah.
But like I kind of feel like they did the worst thing they could have done by just laying down and
they're
like
comparable
inviting
for
the
sure.
bear in.
Yeah. So I couldn't find a good account or transcript of exactly what happened in that next moment, but I know the bear jumps on the Romanian guy. It bites him once in the thigh. He fights back. He kicks at the bear. He punches it. And then it surprises the bear enough to where he has room to get up. And when he does, he runs. The bear changes its attention to Sarah. She's starting to get up to also run, and it knocks her down, but then it's almost immediately distracted by large rocks that are hitting its body. Katie, who's still injured, the least mobile of all these people, is standing alone, throwing rocks at the bear in a desperate attempt to stop it from killing her friend. Once again, the bear changes direction and charges at Katie, knocks her down, and immediately begins jumping on her. Her screams cut through the dark mountain air, and these other two people run to the guest house in a blind panic. Meanwhile, John's getting a little irritated that Katie and Sarah are taking so long. He calls out to both of them. Calls them on their phones. He leaves voicemails for them. There's no answer. They'd only walked a few hundred yards away from them, so they definitely should have caught up by now. And he's just thinking, Katie's being Katie. She's taking her time, and they just need to catch up with us. So he decides to walk back up on the trail to where he left them. And as he's walking, he's realizing it's really dark. I can't see anything. I don't see them anywhere. But then he does see something that makes his irritation immediately turn to fear. And what that is on the ground, he sees what looks like a clump of white feathers. But when he gets closer, he realizes it's actually the Lonely Planet guidebook that they had been carrying. And pages were ripped out of it, and the book was in tatters and just kind of scattered to the wind. So he knows something's really wrong. He starts yelling for Katie, and finally he gets an answer. And that answer was a shrill scream that's cutting through the air. And she screams that she's being attacked by a bear, that he shouldn't come any closer. He needed to get help and get a gun. So he runs back to the first guest house, the one that told them they could sleep on the floor. And to be completely honest, like I'm just saying what he said, he's having some pretty selfish thoughts as he runs back. He's feeling tired. He's talking about his feet hurt. He's thinking about how bad it's going to suck to call Katie's mom to tell her that her daughter died. And then he realizes like, this is not what I should be thinking about. He snaps out of it and starts running as fast as he can back to the guest house. He was like slowing down because he was so tired. Yeah.
It reminds, so when Jeff and I were in Rome together, he accidentally locked himself out of his room one night. And I honestly I was so annoyed. I was like more annoyed than he was that he had done this. And it's just reminding me, it's like, come on, dude, this isn't that big of a deal, especially to you. But it is kind of a funny way of thinking. Like you're still kind of just annoyed, even though something pretty terrible is happening to someone else.
I think what I did was worse, honestly.
These are a very different magnitude. And I kind of want to just do a quick aside. In his interview, he is very honest with like his feelings of how he handled this whole thing. And I found it refreshing.
Like hard on himself.
Yeah, I found it refreshing. I also had a hard time not agreeing with him with some of the things he was hard on himself about. Yeah. So I'm going to try my best not to like dive into that too deeply. If you want to listen to that interview, again, it's on This Is Actually Happening. Okay. So when he gets to the first guest house, this Romanian guy who had been attacked was already there. He told him that he had punched the bear and escaped. And then suddenly Sarah comes running up too. Somehow he had missed them both on the trail, like they hadn't crossed paths. But they confirm what Katie said, that a large brown bear was attacking her and that they needed to get help. John immediately asked the guest house owner if he had a gun. And he said that he did, but that John couldn't have it because if it was discharged without permission, he would have to pay a huge fine. He could lose his guest house and his entire means of income.
That's
It's
crazy.
like, why have a gun if you can't
Yeah,
go shoot
if
a
there's a
brown bear that's
grizzly bear.
attacking someone? Yeah.
Yeah.
John argues with them. He offers him money. He offers him his passport, everything he can to get the gun, even though John has no idea how to fire a gun. And this guy says
The
no.
guy should just go with him.
I know. Again, lots of mistakes are made on this one. Then John turns to the group. He says, who will go back with me to try and help Katie? And no one volunteers. So John grabs his flashlight, which is like one of those little wind up mechanical flashlights, and runs back out into the dark and up the trail.
That's crazy that no one was willing to help.
Another
They have
huge
a
mistake.
gun.
Yeah.
That's tough.
A full guest house of people. So he gets back to where he had last heard Katie. And at this point, he can only hear two things: soft grunting and breathing from the bear, and then a high-pitched gurgling scream from Katie. And periodically, she would also say things like no and help. John points his flashlight at the bear, and he's shocked by how big it is. He's about 15 yards away, and it turns and looks at him, so he runs back further from the bear. He starts throwing rocks at the bear, but it has absolutely no effect. And then he just watches helplessly as this bear's head keeps kind of moving down back and forth along her body, and he just assumes it's eating her. It's been about 25 minutes now that she's being attacked by this bear, and at this point, her screams are reduced to kind of just a raspy, wordless sound, almost inhuman, like an animal that's being killed by another animal. He tries to get closer to the bear a few times, but his fear would take over and he would back up again and was resigned to simply watch and throw rocks and hope this bear would leave. He watches as its head dips down over and over again. He can hear her clothes ripping. He hears sounds that he thinks are the bear eating, and he can hear Katie screaming.
Oh, man.
So John hears this voice telling him to do something, to intervene, to save his wife, to be the hero. And then he hears another voice telling him what a coward he was for not intervening. And he feels this
So like
deep...
the angel and the devil on his shoulders are like teaming up.
Yeah,
That's
they're
always
both
bad
like,
when they're
"This
like
guy
saying the same
sucks."
thing.
When they agree.
Yeah.
He feels this really deep sense of failure. Like, I think we've talked about this before. We've all imagined these kind of scenarios where you could be the hero, and he probably had too. But when he's confronted with a bear that's actively killing his wife in the darkness, he feels too scared to intervene. He doesn't want to take it any further than he already has. And he imagines Katie feeling this great sense of disappointment because she hears him arrive and then he doesn't do anything. And her primal, like, deep screams are just washing over them, and he's just sitting there frozen in inaction. And he knows that she's either going to die or be so severely mauled that her life is going to be changed forever. So he continues to call out to her, tell her that he was there, and then just stand there. He knew that he wasn't willing to really sacrifice himself, so he owed it to her to at least stand there and witness the attack.
Dude,
I know, it's so rough.
that is heavy.
So then he looks down the trail at the hostel, and he sees a small group armed with flashlights and like pans and stuff. And they're moving slowly, but making a ton of noise. And they're just slowly moving up the trail toward him. They're banging these pots and pans. They're yelling, they're screaming. And he watches them move closer and closer, and he runs back down to them. And this group now has a bunch of Romanians as well as this doctor and her husband. And he leads them to where Katie was. And when they get there, the bear's gone. She's alone. They can see her body. She's completely silent at this point, and the bear had left. Again, like a united group of people making a lot of noise was more than enough to scare this bear off. Immediately, one of the things they noticed was there wasn't really any blood on Katie. Her face was muddy, but untouched. When this doctor bends down to shine the flashlight on her pupils, they're unresponsive. So she's not, reacting to the light. She's completely white, and she had a faint heartbeat that was almost impossible to hear. But because they didn't know where the bear was, they decided they needed to move Katie to safety. They carry her down to the guest house where they could lay her down on the dining room table. When they lay her down, she has no pulse, she wasn't breathing, and everyone knows that she had died. So they spend the night doing a bunch of different tests just to confirm that she was dead, to really figure out, what had happened. This group of like bear specialists in Romania show up, but they're essentially just hunters. and they like make dinner and kind of get drunk. There's this whole thing that's going, and John's just kind of sitting there dealing with the fact that his wife had just died, but also dealing with the fact that he had reacted to it in a more cowardly way than he had ever imagined he would. He makes some hard phone calls. He calls Katie's mom. She immediately asks John what she can do for him, which was a really hard pill for him to swallow.
Oh, man.
And then when some medical professionals arrive, the reason they say she died was something called gross thoracic trauma. And what that is it means that her internal organs had been crushed. So the bear had spent pretty much this entire like half an hour just jumping on her and pressing its weight onto her, and had crushed her rib cage and a lot of her internal organs. And she died from the resulting trauma and essentially like bled to death internally instead of externally.
So were there any like claw or bite marks or anything on her body?
There for sure were,
claw, yeah.
but that's not why she died. Like it was just
she
from
didn't
the
get
bear.
like eaten at all.
No, which is crazy. And I think that's the first one we've had on the podcast where that was the cause of death, was just essentially blunt force trauma from a bear, which is pretty wild. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I wonder like if it changed. At the start, it seems a little bit more like predatory where it bit the guy's thigh.
Yeah.
But then like when she was throwing rocks at the bear, maybe it's just like, I'm going to neutralize this threat.
Yeah, I really don't know. It didn't have cubs.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, I'm not saying that's what happened.
I went through the same thought process.
Hypothesizing.
I think the fact that it made such a slow, deliberate attempt on them, like that it just kind of went right for him, does make me think that it was investigating them as food. And I do think had this bear had more time with her without being interrupted, because kind of pretty consistently through this attack, people were showing up, even if they were just watching or whatever. It probably didn't feel totally comfortable. I do think it probably would have fed on her, but it's hard to say. This is a hard one to say for sure. All of the interviews I read with John, he talks really openly about this feeling of cowardice, feeling completely frozen. It does make him feel a little detached when you're listening to it. He talks about it in like kind of a very casual way. And he talks about how a lot of the feelings really only hit him after he got back to civilization. And then he broke down. He had these feelings of panic, of terror, of depression. Lots of different feelings hit this guy throughout his, like the resulting time. One of the main feelings he felt, though, was a sense of loneliness and a sense of kind of wanting to move on past this. And the following year, he started dating a friend named Kate. They were married about a year and a half following Katie's death, and he had a few kids with her. And then they ended up getting divorced. But he wrote this book called Young Widower, a memoir.
Then he dated someone named Kat.
Yeah, seriously.
Just kept
really
getting
likes
shorter.
variations. Yeah. But he wrote this book, Young Widower, a memoir. I didn't read the book, but I did read this excerpt from it that was in Slate magazine. The book is kind of supposed to be about grief, but he says it's really a lot of it about guilt, because he just felt really terrible that he didn't intervene. And again, is really honest about his feelings, which I think is impressive, but also kind of a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. I know it's hard to, from especially like armchair psychology, to really understand what all is going through his brain, or like actually what literally did happen over there. But do you think it's justified the way he was feeling? Because I know a lot of times survivor's guilt, people feel that way, even though they don't really have a compelling reason to, like wartime survivors, stuff like that. Do you think his guilt is legitimate?
Yeah,
I
do. But I
think
don't
a
think
lot
it's
of the wartime survivors' guilt is legitimate too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, like if you if you get like blown up in a car and you survive for whatever reason, like it wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, and it's like your friends died and
exactly.
Died. Yeah. No, that's a bad joke.
No, it's funny. You should make more of this.
There's a tweet I saw recently that was like, only the U.S. will go invade a country and then later make a movie about how sad it made them feel.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. Anyway,
got to make that money.
I would say my 2 cents on it. I think John, he definitely has things he can blame himself for and things like he could have done to save Katie. But he was like probably like 4th on my list of blame.
Yeah.
I'd say like number 1 is the guy with the gun who wouldn't give him the gun. Like that's just insane.
That's wild.
If I was John, you can't like say what you would do, because what would you actually do? But I'd be like, let me borrow your knife then. And then I would hold the knife to him and be like, give me your fucking gun or I'm going to stab you. And then you have to get that gun if there's a gun.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of culpability just to like the education of brown bears in that area.
Yeah.
Sounds like people felt way too afraid of this one bear, and everyone thought maybe they would die if they went to go help Katie. So like that's just bad education.
Yeah.
And then
in a way,
that second cabin should have just let him stay there, you know?
Yeah. In a way, there's a lot of parallels between Night of the Grizzlies. Because if you guys remember when some of those women, I forget, I think it was Helgeson, forget her first name, when she was being attacked, like no one wanted to go help because they thought the bear was like going to eat them or kill them or whatever. And it took them a while to go help as well. And I agree with what you said just a second ago, Jeff, that education was the main thing that was lacking here. And I don't want to say in Romania, I want to say in this group of people, like they were not well educated about what to do with the bear. And had they just had
some of them were like the homeowners of those homes in grizzly bear country.
Yeah. But
So, like,
that was
they
people
got
they
it,
encountered. That was people they encountered after the attack had already started. And this attack should have never happened in the first place. So Mike, to your question, I do want to go through a couple things really quickly just to say, yes, I think John is culpable for some of this, but not because of like stuff that he knew and didn't do. It's because of stuff he should have known and didn't do. So first of all, I think the number one thing here is they were hiking without any kind of deterrent in brown bear country. And I don't think bear spray is legal in Romania. If I were to go hiking in the Carpathian Mountains, I would probably figure out a way to smuggle some in or figure out a way to get some bear spray. If I didn't have it, I would make sure that I had something, a flare gun, a gun, something to make sure that I had some sort of deterrent, because this is a place where a lot of bear attacks happen. And this is a bear that you can't always discourage by just being loud and yelling and throwing things. So having a deterrent. Second, they were hiking at night when someone had told them that they had just seen a bear. That's very high risk behavior. If you bump into that bear, there's a good chance it's not going to know what you are, and it's going to be very territorial or aggressive. It might just run away, but it might decide to charge in and hit you. Next, I think their biggest mistake they made that would have stopped this entire encounter from happening is them splitting up when Katie got hurt. At that point, they knew there was a bear around and they split up. And if you stay in large groups, bears do not like interacting with large, unified groups of people. They just don't do it. When that group came up from the guest house, they stopped it. The bear left because a large group of people was approaching it. So that was where I think that was the fatal mistake, in my opinion. Next, the other biggest mistake, I would say number 2, was them playing dead when this bear approached them. It could have gone fine. Maybe the bear would have sniffed them and just walked off, but you're giving the bear all of the control at that point. You're saying you get to decide how this interaction ends. Running was a big mistake. And then not grouping up again once they knew that she was being attacked. John not just saying, listen, you guys are coming with me. We're going to go scare this bear and stop this attack. Because that's what I would say, listen, we need as big a group as possible. We're going to be as loud and as unified as possible. It is going to leave if we do that. And it would have. It did.
Yeah.
Had that guy and Sarah not ran away, they could have stopped it from killing Katie. Like they ran and they left her behind.
Sure.
And had the two of them just stayed unified, like they would have been able to, just with those 3 people, to discourage that bear. But they broke off and then it just kind of hit them one at a time. And so that running,
they might have been able to. Like the bear had already bit one of them with 3 people there, though.
Yeah, but like when you look at the data, there's really no bad maulings that have ever happened in groups of 3 or more. It just doesn't happen. When the people are grouped up.
That's normally, I know you're right, and I'm not trying to, you're the bear biologist, but like,
yeah,
that situation is normally like the bear doesn't engage the people because there's 3 people standing up making noise, making it so the bear doesn't want to come in. I feel like once a bear engages and like bites someone, its mindset has already switched a little bit, you know?
Yeah, but not necessarily, like not with this bear. Like you're right. You know, the
But it
Lillard,
was with this bear.
the Hot Springs bear, I forget the name of the river.
Yeah. Because
That
like Katie
bear,
was
like-
stayed and was throwing
But wait,
rocks at
wait.
it and trying to get it away.
Once that black bear in that story like locked into someone, you're right, like it switched on to predator mode and there was nothing you could do to discourage it. That wasn't the case with this bear. It bit this guy and then it went to someone else and then it went to Katie. Like it was kind of just thinking, oh, I had these 3 different targets that are all
Neutralize the
totally
threat.
submissive and I can just kind of take my time and explore each of them. And if they had all 3 stood up, even after being bitten or knocked down or whatever, had they stood up and grouped up and yelled and thrown things and presented a unified threat against that bear, I really, really, really doubt it would have continued that attack. I think it would have left. So, any other questions before we get on to our categories?
I might interrupt you in a little bit and ask a question.
Okay.
What is like the best bear deterrent available in Romania?
I honestly don't know. Probably like dogs, a gun. They don't
Guns are
have
hard to get though, right? Like
they
they
don't
couldn't
have
have
bear
got a
spray.
gun
yeah.
for their
So
hike.
the best deterrent is just big groups of people at that point, you know, and education. But they really someone needs to figure out a way to get bear spray broken into Europe because they would have far less attacks in Romania if they had bear spray and if they had education on how to use it.
How often is it tracked? How often bear spray is deployed in a given year? That's probably really hard to track, but is it pretty frequent in the States?
It's not tracked on large, but it's tracked in individual places. Like in Yellowstone, anytime it was deployed, we tracked it. And then there's papers, the one I just referenced, Tom's paper, where he analyzed pretty much every time it had been deployed in Alaska and compared it to firearms deployments against bears and looked at the differences.
If you had to guess how many times bear spray was used, say in 2024, would you have a number, a ballpark, or does it vary pretty?
Like used
widely?
on a bear?
Yeah, sure. Or just
I would say-
towards any threat.
I would say on a bear, like a couple dozen times.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, probably not a lot, but
Sure. No, I mean, that's
Yeah.
still, that's enough to, sway the stats.
yeah, I would probably guess like 40 to 50 times actually. But
Yeah.
I can't
That's
say for
I
sure.
mean, that's 50 potential attacks that were averted. So that's
Yeah.
a good number in my uneducated opinion.
But I don't, don't quote me on that because I really don't know. That's
Sure.
Yeah, I've never been
I
asked
won't.
that before. Okay. Well, let's get to our categories.
Will you
Quote
quote
yourself.
yourself? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. First up, I want to hear your favorite Romanian. Can be real, can be an actor, can be a character, whatever you want.
Yeah, so I have kind of a strange one that my mom really into this Romanian gymnast named Nadia Comenici. She was the first gymnast to ever score a perfect 10 in gymnastics. I think it was at like the Montreal Games or something.
Yeah.
And for some reason, my mom talked about her more than you would think. I mean, no one really knows my mom, I guess. So that's a weird frame of reference. But like the fact that she brought it up enough for me to remember without even having to like look up whether Nadia Comenici was Romanian, I think that's enough maybe to put it in your brains how often she was talking about this weird little 14-year-old gymnast from Romania. It was great though. She is an awesome gymnast.
All right. Jeff, are you still looking yours up? You want me to do
I
mine?
kind of forgot to do this one. Who are some
That's
good
fine.
Romanians?
Sebastian Stan's Romanian.
I don't
Is
know
he?
who
He's
that
born
is.
in Romania. Yeah.
Huh.
He's like the Winter Soldier actor.
He was born there?
Yeah.
Whoa, interesting.
My pick is Vlad the Impaler, Dracula.
Yeah.
I have a hard time picking a Romanian I like more than Dracula, who's probably my favorite monster of all time. So
He's kind of a bad guy though.
yeah, but it made for some good stories, good movies.
Like he's got like women slaves. You like that?
Makes for
I
good
don't.
stories.
I don't like that, but I don't think that's necessarily what his like mistresses are.
I mean,
Doesn't
I
he
don't
kind of
know.
like bite them and enslave them? I don't know what the
yeah,
you've
maybe.
you've read the original book, I think.
It's been a
actually
while
It's
haven't.
ago.
kind of like a cannibal, like mass.
He's not a good guy.
Killer.
I'm not arguing that Dracula's a good guy. I'm not trying to build my life like his, but he's my favorite Romanian character.
Here, will you guys give me a few other choices?
I don't know many others.
Was the guy from Harry Potter, the Victor Crumb, was he?
Oh, I'll take
Romanian?
him. Yeah, I'll take
Sure.
Crumb.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not sure if he's Romanian. He's
I
somewhere.
think he
from-
is. Yeah.
He's the idiot though who scored the snitch when his team was down 150 points, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, hold on. He's Bulgarian. Sorry.
Shoot.
But their school is in Romania, isn't it?
Is that what I'm thinking? That could be
I
it.
think so. So we'll count it. Let's just count that.
That's okay.
All right.
I mean, I doubt we have any Romanian listeners will offend by it.
I feel like they got some good tennis in Romania.
yeah, I
women's
think
tennis.
just like the Roma people, like Romani people are just really, I think it's an interesting culture, the music. I just think there's a lot of really interesting things about Romania. I really want to visit Romania.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
You know what though? I don't like people who keep women as slaves. So
Okay.
I'm gonna disagree with Wes.
I don't either.
on
I
liking
don't
that.
like
That's
them
fair.
either. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure everyone knows my position on that is I'm anti, but I do like Dracula.
You're sending mixed signals. I don't know about all
Yeah,
that.
I don't-
The Romanian deadlift, whoever invented that, he's probably a pretty.
All right. We're going to
Good
move on from
weightlifter.
this category.
All right.
Okay.
Probably a WWE guy.
The next category is movie you wish you could give the main character a gun, because I think we all wish that John could have had a gun. So a movie that you wish you could go back and give them a gun.
Yeah, I'll go first this time.
Yeah.
We just mentioned it, but I would
Okay.
love some guns in Harry Potter.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I don't know. I feel
Would
like
change
guns
things.
exist in the Muggle world, and like it takes a while to say a spell. Like a
Yeah.
lot of times, I feel like a gun would work way better.
Or you can just do that
Right.
like push thing where you got the different colors coming out and pushing against each other. And you pull your Glock out with your other hand and just fire a few rounds. Yeah.
And like, I think the best wizard's like Dumbledore. He doesn't say his spells, so I think he could, evaporate the bullets or whatever. But I
Oh,
mean, you
sure.
start getting like nukes and bazookas and stuff. I don't know what Dumbledore's gonna do to a nuke.
Yeah. I didn't say nuke. I said gun. For the purpose of this, we'll say like a machine gun.
Well, like a nuke gun.
No, not a nuke gun.
Yeah.
All right.
A
Mike,
wizard dude with a gun, Harry Potter, if you like miss your shot, you just do that spell that you like recall the bullet to
Yeah, and
you.
it just,
and
like,
it's like you don't
circles
even
back in.
waste a shot.
Passio bullet.
Yeah.
That's the one. So I'm gonna
And
go
then
with
just stand in the line of the
I'm
person.
going with Neo from The Matrix. I think he could have used a gun. In that one part when he and Agent Smith are fighting in the subway and they both run out of bullets at the same time, just give Neo
Okay.
another gun. He's got some more bullets and he wins. I think that would have been really handy for him.
I love that you picked a movie where it's like famous
most
scene
guns.
where they get the most guns ever in any movie.
Yeah, well, not enough apparently.
I'm gonna pick Home Alone. I think just give Kevin like a submachine gun and that
The
ends very
Family
differently.
Guys.
I'd give
skit
Marv
where
the gun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where the
Kind of ruins the movie, I guess, but
It makes
or
it a lot
Braveheart.
shorter.
give Braveheart a gun, you know?
That'd
You
be
know,
that
it'd
long
be
shank.
interesting in Hunger Games to have like one gun in the
Oh, yeah.
center where everyone goes.
It's a good point.
Everyone
Yeah.
else has like spears and stuff, and
Do
one
guns
guy has a
exist
gun.
in that world?
Yeah, the guards have guns.
Yeah, that's right.
Like the third one is like a whole civil war. Just
Yeah, there's a
gunfight.
bunch of guns in that
That's right.
one. Okay. All right. Jeff, you got a random animal fact for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with one. I think we've mentioned it before, but people forget. And on our last trip, people didn't know this, and I'm gonna need an assist from you because I didn't look up the word.
Okay.
But I'm just gonna describe the difference of spots between cheetahs, leopards, and jaguars.
Great.
So cheetah spots are just dots, right? There's no
Yes.
like real shape to it. It's just like dots, like a Dalmatian almost.
Yeah,
like you got
they would be
dots.
considered spots.
Spots, yep. And then on a leopard, you get circles. Sometimes it's
Rosettes.
yeah. So those are rosettes,
Rosettes.
and it's
Yep.
just a circle. Okay. Then
Yeah.
a jaguar is a circle with a dot in the middle of
Right.
the circle.
And when
And
you're
what's
saying
the dot
circle,
called
you
in the
mean
middle?
you mean like a circle that has an empty middle too, because a dot is a
Like a
circle, or a
Cheerio.
spot's a circle too, right? Like a Cheerio circle. Yeah,
Yeah.
Leopards are
Is a rosette.
Cheerios.
yeah. And
That's a
the
good point.
dot in
Oh,
the
so-
middle, I don't know if it has a name, but jaguars
Oh,
have
so I was thinking
rosettes.
of rosettes.
Yes, jaguars have rosettes with dots in the middle. Leopards have empty rosettes, and
Okay.
not all of jaguars' rosettes will have a dot in the middle, but a couple of them will.
Yeah.
Hmm,
So if you
Yeah.
see a picture of a leopard and a jaguar and you can't tell which is which, just like look at every single circle of their spots and look for a dot in the middle. And if you see any dots in the middle, it's a jaguar.
Yeah,
I'll just barely let you qualify that as a Jeff fact, but Wes really did. It was like a 55-45.
he knew what
said
he
I
was
was gonna
saying.
have an
I was
assist.
just
Well, I
explaining
was-
it a little more clear.
Yeah.
You knew what you
I
were
had
saying.
it.
Sure.
I would say there's probably been leopards out there that have spots inside of their rosettes, but
Nope,
as a
not that I've
general
seen.
rule, you can use it. Okay, great fact. We're gonna do some nice advice would suffice. Jeff, did you find someone that needs advice?
Yeah. It's more just, well, okay, yeah. Let's start. I'm going to do two because one's quick and one's just
Okay.
like a layup. All right, this one's from Lisa. Please help settle a family dispute. We're headed to a location in Mexico for spring break that has dolphin attractions, specifically swim ride dolphins. Without anthropomorphizing what the dolphins like and dislike, is this enjoyable for them? Is this akin to trained circus animals? Do you think the dolphins are treated well at these attractions? We are split as a family and greatly appreciate your input. Thanks so much. We love the podcast. Cheers.
You shouldn't ride dolphins ever.
Yeah.
I can't say exactly like what they're feeling or experiencing, but I do know that any place that lets you like hold on to a dolphin and ride it, the dolphins aren't being treated well. You have to.
There's one right by us in Cozumel when we were
Yeah.
just there, and I had my ass pain. The ass pain's irrelevant to that, but I think the dolphins might like it when you're like swimming with them and they're like pushing you or whatever because they probably get fed, they probably get rewarded, they're interacting. But their living situation isn't a good situation. They shouldn't be in a pool just having to do tricks with humans.
Yeah. I would say they might have liked it the first few times, but like that's what those dolphins have to do every day, day in, day out. That's the only thing they do is drag people around in the water. And you're right, Jeff. I think they've like come to associate it with the reward and they like the reward they get. But there's a reason dolphins don't really do that in the wild because it's not part of their natural behavior. And when they do, it's interesting and that's fine. If you're ever out in the wild and a dolphin decides to come up and bump you and swim around you or whatever, great. But those places are not ethical. You should never ride a dolphin.
Yeah, and my point's more just like, even if it feels like the dolphin enjoys your company, it's not a good situation for the dolphin, you know?
Dolphins, there's something very unfortunate for dolphins is that they always look happy. And so
Yeah.
people think they're happy when they're not. And
It's
those
like
dolphins in
Robin
those places
Williams.
are not happy. Yeah. Yeah.
He always
Perfect
seemed happy,
example.
you know? But he wasn't.
I always
Yep.
sensed a sadness behind those eyes.
All right.
Well,
You're
what's
very
that?
perceptive, Mike.
What's that like poem or whatever where the clown is the one who's
Yeah,
depressed
Pagliacci
at
the clown.
bar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
He
Doc,
makes everyone
I
else
am the
happy.
clown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's a funny
dolphins.
Yeah.
What's number 2?
Okay, this is from Alicia. This is a long one. Okay, Wes, my question is kind of long, so I hope you bear with me. It's about wolves and their conflict with cattle ranchers in California. My husband grew up on a large cattle ranch in Northern California where his dad was the cow boss manager. They didn't own the ranch, it belonged to a rich dude with many businesses, but they lived there and spent every day on horseback ranching. They were honest-to-God cowboys and cowgirls. Now the ranch is owned by a different rich dude with many businesses, and my husband's sister has taken over as manager. So here's where the wolves come in. As I'm sure you know, wolves have made a comeback in California in recent years. There's currently 7 separate California wolf packs in the state, and ranchers are starting to get pretty pissed about the wolves killing calves and other young cattle. Mike, you're probably mad about that too.
Don't do that.
The ranch where my sister-in-law works has lost 4 or 5 head in the past year, and when they went to California Department of Fish and Wildlife to make claims via the wolf livestock competition constipation pilot
Compensation.
program, they were told that there's no money left over for constipation after the administrative costs. I cannot confirm this, but it's what I've been told. While I too come from an agricultural family and community, I'm of the mindset that when you farm and have a ranch, you have as much responsibility towards the wildlife that share the land that you are on, if not more so, than the livestock you're raising. I think Wes said your Hawaiian cousins call it a tax when a shark or something gets the fish they're fishing. I'm inclined to feel the same way, And I'm even more inclined to not give a shit about the bottom line of one rich dude's mini businesses. Like, just fucking fold that into your cost of doing business or whatever. But to be fair, my sister-in-law, it's not about the money. She just loves and cares about each calf that's killed. And it's hard for her to lose these cows. And she goes on to say, like, there's also ranchers who aren't rich, who have cattle, who, like, kind of surviving at low costs and kind of just getting by. And they lose cows. So what's your advice, Wes?
Yeah, I think, first of all, from what I understand, most of those compensation programs are run through the federal government, not through state governments. So I'd be surprised if this rancher isn't able to get some compensation for losses to wolves, especially because wolves in the lower 48 in California are still protected. There's places in other parts of the country where you can shoot them, but in California, I believe you can't shoot a wolf that's depredating your livestock. So I'd be shocked if they're not able to find compensation.
Doge is probably like, we spent like $500 million on wolf compensation with like no evidence or anything, just
that might be true.
Statement.
It might be harder than ever to get that money. I agree with the author of this question that I think part of you running your cows in wilderness, in places where there's predators, is you accept some risk that there's a chance that there's going to be animals that kill this like essentially helpless animal that you're putting out right in front of them. That's just part of the deal, in my opinion. If you want to ranch in wolf country or places that were even traditionally wolf country that are becoming wolf country again, that's just part of what you have to deal with. I do think there's a level, though, where that line gets crossed. Like there was a while ago where 2 wolves in Montana killed like 140 sheep in one night and didn't eat any of them, even just killed them. And I do think in that situation, you probably need to eliminate those wolves, those 2, and you probably need to compensate that farmer because that's a whole loss of like an entire year's worth of animals. So it's nuanced. I don't think there's one answer that fits all for this. But personally, I do believe that ranching inherently comes with some risks. And if you ranch in a place that has predators like wolves or grizzly bears or mountain lions, you just have to accept that you're going to have some losses.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of insane, actually, to just think you can have cattle roaming such large areas and none not of them have like any animals interact with them at all.
Right.
That's a lot of range. And I'll just say, too, we were just in Ladakh, India, and there were ranchers there that were ranchers in America who you think are poor. Like these guys were definitely way more poor. And in our week there, we saw a horse that was killed by wolves, and we saw a cow that was killed by a snow leopard. And like they're dealing with it. And like their government, we have one of the richest governments in history. Like they should be taking care of that. Like in India, they're able to take care of these farmers losing animals. Yeah. So I think our government should be able to take care of that as well.
Yeah. And over there, they've realized the value of keeping those animals alive, the wildlife. So it's a great question. And we'll definitely talk about it more in other episodes. Okay. Let's do 2 more quick ones. First of all, something you'd recommend recently. I'm going to go first, so I can beat Mike to it again.
No, please.
I'm going to recommend the band Sophie Tucker, which is the combo of a woman and a guy. It was introduced to me and Mike at the same time by some guests on our last trip. Shout out Chantel and
I actually
Cassie.
heard about them like 24 hours in advance ahead of you.
And we both listened to it on a long drive to Doba. And there's one song, the vocalist, Sophie, speaks fluent Brazilian Portuguese, and so do I. And so it really hits for me. And there's one song called Jacaré, which is pretty much means caiman. And it just is one of those songs that just lifts my mood every time I listen to it. Just really been listening to it a lot lately. So I like Sophie Tucker quite a bit. So that's my shout out.
You speak fluent Portuguese?
Yeah.
Say the crocodile swallowed a black cat and the black cat crawled out.
O jacaré comeu o gato negro e o gato negro saiu da boca do jacaré.
Oh, nice.
He's good.
That was perfect. I'll go. Mine is, we normally do like pop culture. I normally do just sports. I'm going to just say going on a walk during or right after a snowstorm. because
Yeah.
we had a big snowstorm in Salt Lake the other day, and I was the only one walking, and it's like one of the most beautiful days I've been on a walk this entire year. And it's just weird to me that, like, you know, once it gets sunny and it's just like blue sky and sun, everyone's outside. But after like a snowstorm, like everyone just stays inside.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice time to go on a walk.
The whole
world-
time where you're just like, I'm just built different than all of these people.
Yeah.
Earth is
Waddling
just so
around
much
like a
better
penguin.
without anyone else out there to bother you. This place is actually pretty amazing.
And so quiet after a snowstorm, which we all
Mm.
love. A little bit of
Right.
peace and quiet.
I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out the podcast I just did a guest appearance on. I genuinely think they're a great group of guys over at Lost and Found and Rewound. So they have 2 ampersands in their name. We only have 1, so let that tell you what it will. But what they do is they talk about usually the older, more esoteric or forgotten movies that is kind of right down my alley, if that sounds nice to you. They're just like a super chill group of 3 friends. And we talked about the movie Sorcerer. I'm not telling you to go listen to the episode I was on because I think
Sorcerer's on my short list right now of movies to watch.
it's unbelievable. It's actually, I picked that movie for us to watch, and it's an all-timer. Kind of a forgotten classic from Friedkin, director of movies, The Exorcist, French Connection, To Live and
the
Die
guy
in LA,
from
et cetera, et cetera.
Jaws is in it, right?
Roy Scheider, my guy,
Yeah.
Roy Scheider. Holy
Roy.
cow.
Did you
He's so
plug
good.
Did you plug Tooth and Claw when you guested?
I did not personally talk about the show, but
You were
Chris-
the worst guest.
yeah, I really am. Chris did a good job of introducing me, much better than Jeff's ever done. Go figure. But no, they're awesome.
He
Like,
probably lied. He probably
vibe-
said you're like an equal member of Tooth and Claw.
yeah, he was like a co-host, and I was like, oh, whoa, don't put that responsibility on me.
You're just the tech guy.
I'm just the tech guy. No, but they have a great vibe, and I really want to shout those guys out. I feel like I probably went on and rambled just like I'm doing right now and kind of ruined the energy of the show. Because
No,
usually it's just
Mike.
like 3 dudes that are just chilling together. And I went on there and started yelling out much the Sorcerer is like better than the Exorcist and stuff.
Did you
which
get
I actually,
mad?
I believe, but
Did you get mad at them like you got mad at us last episode?
Sorcerer
man.
is better than that. You know what? You're an equal member. I shouldn't have said that.
nah, won't stop you.
All right. Our last category we're going to do today is conservation. I want to talk about brown bears in Romania quickly. It's actually an interesting story. Romania, prior to 1965, probably had far less brown bears than they have now, but a dictator gained power and kept that power until 1989, and there was an unlikely benefit for the bears. This guy's name was Nicolae Ceausescu, and he loved shooting bears. In fact, he loved it so much that he wouldn't let anyone else shoot bears, just him and his buddies. And he said that there was a decree that he issued that everyone else had to protect bears, and they even had to feed bears, and that only he and his buddies were allowed to hunt them. So in a way, the fact that he loved killing bears so much actually protected bears in Romania as a whole. And they really did well during this period.
That's interesting. That's like
Yeah.
the trophy hunters going to Africa who are like, well, we actually give more money to conservation than anyone.
Yeah, that's a whole, we'll get into that at some point. But we're probably going to do a whole episode on this Nicolae Ceausescu at some point because it's a really interesting story.
Yeah,
But,
that's interesting.
Bear hunting in Romania was outlawed in 2016 over the past few years after some highly publicized
pretty
attacks.
recent.
Yeah, some highly publicized attacks, including one we covered in a news episode where a girl was thrown off a cliff by a bear. The Romanian government introduced a cull on their bears, C-U-L-L. And the quota in 2024 was almost 500 bears that they wanted to cull. I don't know how many they ended up killing. That's pretty aggressive. The year before, I think it was like 250 to 300 bears. Last year, they wanted to kill 500. So it's pretty aggressive cull against these bears. They're facing some other threats, loss of habitat, and general conflict with humans because they're increasingly forced to interact with communities, ranchers, and farmers, and they're losing more and more habitat to human expansion. I think there's always going to be some habitat for brown bears in Romania, but it does seem like a place where there's a lot of concern about bears, and they're facing a lot of negative public opinion right now. So it is kind of a hot spot for brown bear conservation. All right. We've done claws a million times for this animal.
Wait, I have a question going back to Mike's thing. So that podcast has 2 amperstamps? Or what are they called?
Ampersands. Yeah.
Ampersand. Yes.
Yeah.
They have 2 of them.
What would ours be if we added something else? Tooth and claw and bones?
Tooth. Ooh, that's probably what it would be, right?
Should we be tooth and claw and bones, Wes?
Tooth
no,
and horns?
I don't want to add anything
Tooth
to
and
it.
horns and bones?
Tooth and claw and horns.
Yeah.
Tooth and horns and bones. No, we're good. Tooth and claw is fine. We don't need another ampersand. I'm happy.
I think 2 ampersands is as many as a podcast will ever have. I can't imagine a 3 ampersand pod out there. That'd be unwieldy.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to end this episode. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for subscribing. Those of you that have subscribed. Oh, actually, a quick announcement. Recently, just so everyone knows, Apple has changed their policies on Patreon. And if you subscribe to our show through the Patreon app, they're going to charge you more. Apple's going to charge you like an extra 30%. So if you're thinking about subscribing, do it on your web browser, do it outside of the app, and then you can get the app and port in your subscription and you'll be fine. But if you download the app and then subscribe, you're going to pay extra. It's like an extra $4 or something.
Like on Apple devices, like an iPhone if you have the Patreon app?
If you get the Patreon app and then subscribe to us through that app, Apple's charging 30%. Stupid. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing to me.
So there's really nothing we can do about it. What you can do though is just subscribe through like your web browser or any other way, and it'll still be $10. All right. I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Love you both. Love you all. And we'll talk to you later.
Love you.
Bye.